Hey there. Ready for some laughs today?
Oh, I'm always ready for some laughs.
Oh, and me both. Um, we are going to be diving into Adam Sandler movies today.
Hey.
You know, those classic films. And we're going to be looking at some fan rankings from the top10s.com to see what fans think.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and see what we can figure out, what makes these movies work, why people love them.
All right.
So let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
The number one fan favorite Adam Sandler movie is Happy Gilmore.
I saw that. Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying it's one of the greatest comedy movies ever made. Not even just a Sandler movie, but just like of all time.
Wow. That's a big statement.
Right?
I mean, I can see it, I guess. It's a classic, that's for sure.
Yeah. And when you mention Happy Gilmore, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, definitely the mini golf scene with the clown.
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't love that scene?
And I think that is part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like these movies become part of the culture and they create these like shared memories that you have with people.
It's true. Like, you can just quote a line and everyone knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So Happy Gilmore is sitting pretty at number one, but at number two, we've got Billy Madison.
Oh, another classic. That's a tough choice between those two.
I know, right? And I feel like a lot of people just love how quotable Billy Madison is.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like they could just recite the entire movie.
It's almost like a comfort movie, you know? Like, you could put it on and just relax and enjoy all the familiar lines.
I totally get that. And to round out the top three, we have another classic, The Water Boy.
Ah, yes. The Water Boy.
Now, this one, it's got that kind of unique premise, right? Football and comedy all in one.
And who could forget the medulla oblongata line?
Oh my gosh, yes. I feel like everyone has tried to say that at some point.
Oh, absolutely. It's become part of our vocabulary.
It's true.
Ah.
Okay. So these top three, they really scream classic Sandler, but he doesn't just stick to one kind of humor,
Yeah,
right?
definitely not.
And a good example of that is Click.
Click, yeah.
Now this one, it's got some of those classic Sandler gags in there, but it also gets a little bit more emotional.
Yeah, definitely more heartfelt. I actually remember getting a bit teary-eyed during that one.
Oh, really?
But in a good way. It just made me think about, life choices and second chances and all that.
Yeah, it's interesting how a movie can make you laugh and cry at the same time.
It's a rare talent to be able to pull that off.
It really is. And I
Yeah.
think that's why Click stands out for a lot of people. It's more than just a comedy. It's got some depth to it.
For sure.
And then you've got The Wedding Singer, which a lot of people consider like peak Sandler.
Oh, I love The Wedding
It's
Singer.
just so good. And I think people love that he's doing something different. He's doing a romantic comedy and it's got all that 80s nostalgia and, of course, the amazing chemistry with Drew Barrymore.
Oh, they are just magic together.
They really are. And speaking of chemistry, we got to talk about Punch Drunk Love.
Punch Drunk Love. Interesting choice.
It's a controversial one for sure, but some fans are saying it's his only good movie.
Wow. Strong opinions there. What makes them say that?
I think it's because it's so different from his other movies.
Yeah, it's definitely darker and more, I don't know, unsettling maybe. Not your typical Sandler fare.
Exactly. And that's what makes it interesting, right? It's like he's challenging the very idea of what an Adam Sandler movie can be.
Us pushing boundaries.
Yes. Okay. Now get ready for this one. Grown Ups.
Ooh, Grown Ups. Yeah, that one gets a lot of love, but also a lot of criticism.
Oh, yeah. It's another one of those movies that divides people.
What is it about Grown Ups that makes it so controversial?
Well, some people love the humor. They think it's hilarious. But others think it's just too over the top.
Too much.
Yeah, maybe a little bit juvenile, but it's clearly resonating with a large audience because it's high up on the list.
It's true. Humor is so subjective, What one person finds funny, another might find totally cringeworthy.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about some of the big hitters, but let's dig into some hidden gems now.
I love a good hidden gem. What have we got?
Well, first up is Reign Over Me.
Reign Over Me. Okay. I haven't seen that one in a while.
This one's interesting because it shows a very different side of Sandler. He's taking on a serious role, and a lot of fans are saying it proves that he can really act.
It's always interesting to see actors branch out and try different genres.
Yeah, it challenges their range.
Exactly.
And another hidden gem, Spanglish.
Spanglish. Okay, I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah, and again, we see Sandler kind of delivering this really what fans are calling a true acting performance. It seems like when he steps outside of his comedic comfort zone, people really take notice.
I think it's refreshing for audiences to see an actor known for comedy, tackles something more dramatic. It shows their depth and versatility.
Right. So we've seen the fan favorites, the ones that spark debate, and even these hidden gems that make you rethink what an Adam Sandler movie can be.
It's amazing how he's managed to have such a long and varied career. It really is. And he's got, decades of movies under his belt.
That's true, and you can really see those decades reflected in what fans are saying. Like, some people really cling to those early classics.
Oh, yeah. Those are the ones that really put him on the map.
Right, but then you've got others who love his more sentimental stuff.
Yeah, the ones that make you laugh and cry at the same time.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about some more of those fan favorites. Coming in pretty high on the list is Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. Oh, I love that one.
It's one of those movies that a lot of people who grew up in the 90s just absolutely adore.
Yeah, it's got that classic 90s feel to it.
And some fans even say it should be higher on the list, that it's better than Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison.
Interesting. I can see why people love it. It's heartwarming and funny and, classic Sandler.
Right. It's got that perfect mix of humor and heart. And speaking of heartwarming, 50 First Dates is another one that gets a lot of love.
Oh, that's a sweet one. I remember watching that when it first came out.
And fans are saying it's one of those movies that you can watch over and over again.
Yeah, it's got that rewatchability factor for sure.
Totally. Like, you can laugh hysterically 1 minute and then get all teary-eyed the next.
Yeah, it's a good mix of emotions.
It's true. Okay, now let's talk about The Longest Yard. This one's a remake.
Right.
And while it might not be as iconic as the original,
Right.
it's still a fun watch for a lot of Sandler fans.
I think remakes can be tricky. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I think The Longest Yard is a decent one.
Yeah, it's a solid remake. Okay, get ready for some strong opinions. Anger management.
Anger management, oh boy.
Yeah, this one really divides people.
I think Jack Nicholson's presence in that one really adds to the, the intensity.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, some people love his performance.
Right.
But others find it a bit much.
Too much.
Maybe a bit over the top for some. All right, let's move on to Little Nicky.
Little Nicky? That's a bit of a cult classic, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of fans are saying it's one of Sandler's most creative and unique films.
I think it's one of those movies that you either love or hate. There's no in between.
I agree, and I think it might have been a little bit ahead of its time.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, it didn't get the recognition it deserved when it first came out.
I can see that.
And then you've got Hotel Transylvania, which, again,
The kids love Hotel Transylvania.
it might not be for everyone, but it's got a really dedicated following.
I think the animation is really well done in those movies.
It is. Okay, that's my boy. Another one that gets some strong reactions.
That's my boy. Ooh, that one's a little raunchy, isn't it?
It is, and some fans are just like, I don't get the hate.
Like, they genuinely love it.
They do, and I think it's just one of those movies where the humor either clicks with you or it doesn't.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
But in contrast to That's My Boy, we have Spanglish.
Spanglish, yeah.
This is one that's often cited as being one of Sandler's most nuanced performances.
It's a reminder that he's not just a funny man. He can do drama, too.
It's true, and I think people really appreciate that.
It's like, hey, this guy has range.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds, a classic Sandler comedy.
It's a fun one, lighthearted and silly.
Definitely a good movie to just put on and relax and not think too much.
Right, it's just pure entertainment.
Exactly.
And then we have Bedtime Stories, which is a great family-friendly option.
Yeah, I remember taking my kids to see that one in theaters.
And fans are saying they love revisiting it with their own kids now.
It's become a family tradition for some.
That's so cool. Okay, let's talk about Funny People. Now, this one's interesting because it's often considered to be one of Sandler's best films, but it's not as high on the list as you might think.
I wonder why that is. Maybe it's just not as well known as some of his other movies.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just, it's a little bit more of a mature film.
Yeah, it's not your typical Adam Sandler comedy.
Exactly. Now, Blended brings Sandler and Drew Barrymore back together.
Oh, I love them together.
They have such great chemistry. And the movie itself is a fun blend of laughter and romance.
Sounds like a good date night movie.
It totally is. I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry is another one that sparks some conversation. It's a comedy that touches on some sensitive topics.
Okay, so it's not just pure fluff.
No, it definitely has some social commentary in there.
I always appreciate when a comedy can make you laugh and think at the same time.
Me too. Okay. And finally, just go with it.
Just go with it. Another one with Jennifer Aniston.
Yep. And this one is full of mistaken identities and crazy
Sounds
situations.
like classic Sandler.
It is. So we've seen a lot of variety here, right?
We have, yeah, from the beloved classics to the divisive entries and everything in between.
And it just goes to show that Adam Sandler, love him or hate him, has made a huge impact on the world of comedy.
He really has. He's got a style that's all his own.
It's true. And that brings us to a question for you, our listener. What do you think it is about Adam Sandler that keeps people coming back for more? Now, rewrite only part 3 of 3 of the transcript for this episode for the TTS. Remember all the listed rules for writing the transcript. Only go to a new line when switching between speakers. Always use speaker tags. Only start by writing hashtag TTS The Deep Dive episode 2025-02-09, part 3 of 3. End by wrapping up the entire episode nicely. Always write out the script like the following. Use speaker tags and a new line between each utterance. Speech.
Speech. Do not write anything other than the transcript of the dialogue. No sound effects, transitions, or nonverbal cues like chuckles and laughing, etc. There should be no breaks within this episode. The host speaker, should always say the first utterance at the start of the show in part 1.
Is it nostalgia? Is it the humor? Or maybe it's something else entirely?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there are probably a lot of factors at play.
Right. And as we've been talking about all these movies, I've been thinking about how Sandler's comedy has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, he started out with these really over-the-top characters.
Right, total absurdity.
Yeah. And then as his career progressed, he started doing more heartfelt roles.
Yeah, more serious stuff.
So maybe it's like he's grown up with his audience.
It's possible, like we've all gotten a little older and our tastes have changed.
Yeah. And maybe we're looking for something different from comedy now than we were back in the 90s.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I think there's still something about Sandler's humor that appeals to a lot of people.
I think so, too. Like,
Yeah.
even in his more serious roles, there's still that little bit of Sandler silliness in there.
Yeah, it's like he can't help himself.
Right. And it's what makes him so unique.
Exactly. So what do you think? What's next for Sandler?
Oh, that's a good question. I have no idea. He's always surprising us.
Right, like you never know what he's going to do next.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what makes him so interesting. He's not afraid to take risks.
Totally. He's always pushing the boundaries of comedy.
So as you're watching your favorite Adam Sandler movies,
Oh, good idea.
think about this. What does his work tell us about ourselves?
That is a good question. About our sense of humor.
Yeah. And maybe even about how our tastes have changed over the years.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
So keep exploring, keep debating, and most importantly, keep laughing.
Yes. Laughter is the best medicine after all.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Adam Sandler movies.